Alright, well, no further ado, tell them.
I just had a question about a lot of the stuff around the Winchmore and so forth was making reference to Olsen P and so forth, but I just wondered if someone wanted to touch on the makeup of the soil with respect to the volume of inorganic versus organic P reserve.
Who would like to grab that one first? Just
on the basis of the likes of Dean Martin and so forth that operate, and Shane here, operating with Olsen P's down around between 4 and 8, and still showing high levels of P in the
I am not saying that you need high P levels to be productive. I was more just for industry to have a look at that trial and correlate how much fertiliser that we actually so-called need or don't need in just in our conventional systems. Okay, so I probably didn't make that clear. I just wanted to get the point across that we are just putting far too much stuff on outside of the scientific basis, really. That was all I wanted to say. You definitely can have high-performing farms at low P levels when you start farming with the regenerative principles. I totally believe that. And I think over time, total P is more important than Olsen P. That's my opinion.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Okay. So saying the issue here is whether your P is available to your planted take or is not available. So your Olsen P usually measures what is already solubilized. It's not strictly true, it's not black or white, but usually that's what it is. And that's why the soil tests advise to measure that. But if you have a system that is driven by your biology will access the P that is supposed to be locked up, or access more of it anyhow. So you can have, it will be then more sensible to measure your total P than your Olsen P. So a lot of these trials are assuming that what is available to the plant is only what can be measured as being soluble, when that's not true. When you're running a system in that manner, your biology is actually accessing the phosphorus. And the same applies to all the other minerals. Does that answer your question?
That's great. Roger.
Simon. There's a big debate at the moment about carbon and whether you can add it and all that sort of thing. And even within the Quorum Sense group, there's some that say that you can't build and some that say that you can't. So how fast do you think, shifting from a conventional system, how fast can you build either soil organic matter or carbon per year over, say, a 10-year period?
Well, I don't know. But what I can share is my own experience, right? So I had one paddock when I purchased the last part of our farm off the family. It had been a feed pad for 150 years. So every year the cattle had been in there, and lots of ryegrass straw. All the ryegrass straw was fed out in there. And when I took it into the cropping system, it was about 15% organic matter. And fairly quickly, even with no till and retaining residue, it dropped back to about 10. And the rest of the farms sort of come up to 10. But what we're finding is that we're actually, so there seems to be something about that sort of a threshold level but what we're doing now, or what I'm finding, is that the soil's getting deeper. So the carbon is it's still staying about that 10, but it's moving down in the soil. So we're growing topsoil. And of course, if you ask ag research, they'll say, "Oh, you can't grow topsoil," and but they're talking about ryegrass, white clover pastures that have a root zone of about that much. And we're building our root zone, and we're building our carbon further down in the soil. Just a wee anecdote. Is there anyone from Rhodes down here? Just. Oh, that's all right. I stopped using PKS fertiliser about 5 years ago, and I had this paddock. Had an Olsen P of about 20, and so I kept testing it every couple of years, and it's now about 60. But I had the test, and there's several other paddocks that have done the same thing, and I showed it to the new young Ravensdown rep when she came around, and she said, "Oh, that's an anomaly. That doesn't make any sense." And I said, "Well, what about these 4 or 5 other paddocks that have got exactly the same thing? They're anomalies as well." But yeah, So Gwen's absolutely right. I've done total P tests. We've got about 2 tonnes per hectare. So why the hell would I put on any more P? It's just a matter of accessing it now and getting the biology to do that.
Also, just on that one, like the fastest way to grow soil organic matter is through root exudate. So it's looking at why are our plants, or if we're not growing soil organic matter, what's the limitation in the carbon cycle that's having us not build carbon through root exudate? So like, nursing our plants along with not only just synthetics, but any sort of top-down, nutrients is going to have that plant not required to, complete that nutrient cycle to then have that elements that you're applying provided to itself, if that makes any sense. So it's looking at how do we get that brixing up and complete that carbon cycle, because it is the quickest way of building soil organic matter.
Do you want me to say something about carbon?
Please.
All right. So I think there's a discussion that we are shying away quite a bit in this circle here, and in terms of building soil carbon, it's not one size fits all. So the scientists are arguing about how to measure carbon. They are not arguing about, they don't say they can't measure carbon. What they are saying is they don't know what is the best method that is absolutely perfect to measure how much carbon is kept in the soil. And that's completely different. It's because each time we have a way of measuring something, it's not perfect. There's limitation, there's assumptions that are being made. And that's what they are spending their time arguing about. However, what we know is we can measure carbon concentration, and we can measure folds of carbon that stay soluble. And I've shown you some data showing we're trying to decipher the mechanism to understand when is carbon still available to microbes to respire it and then lose it, or when is carbon kept in little storage pockets, right? So we're starting to figure that out. Then we have the issue of the soil depths, and that's what currently the scientific community is not looking at. So not only do you have to measure concentration, but you have to measure a volume, right? If you put an amount of sugar in one small cup of water, if you put 1 teaspoon in one small cup, you can increase your total amount if you put 2 of the same glass with 2 of the teaspoon of sugar, right? You'll have 2 teaspoons of sugar. And usually, in science, we're using always the same volume to measure stuff. So we are failing to account that possible increase when we increase the soil depth. However, I have to say, there are thresholds, and we don't have those data. So I can't tell you between 1 and 4% it's easy to increase carbon, and above 4% it's difficult. And then after 6 or 7% it's again very easy. That seems to be some kind of a trend, but there is no real hard data, so I cannot tell you that. But there are some soils that react quicker, and some soils that react less quick. And there are some soils that will be more amenable to have a very fast buildup, and some soils where it will be much more difficult to build the carbon. So the debate about science says we can't build soil carbon and science says we can build it, it's not really that. It's just that we still need to explore where are the places where it can increase really fast, and then bring on board all of the knowledge that we are discussing here, this effect of building the soil depths, the animals, the root exudates, trying to figure out what's going on with the structure, and put all of that together. And at the moment, people are not doing it because we're not working together. That's our main message.
Very good point, Queen. I'll go.
Yeah. Just in relation to that, I guess, Peter, being in an arid environment, I've often heard that it's harder to build soil quickly in an arid environment. Carbon and soil organic carbon in an arid environment. You said that you had an extensive testing, but what have you seen in that?
Well, I guess, one of the things is the country we're on is quite diverse. So we're not in the same space as Hamish, where you've got that intensive stock. And so the intensity is, with that you can really move your carbon quite quickly. So the upside of doing that though is we have some pastures in developed dryland country that have very good organic matter already, because we haven't been throwing synthetic fertiliser on them for years. Then when you come down to the developed country, very developed country, where we're using, you know, the diversity of cover crops and perennials and everything like that. I can't categorically say this is where we've gone from here on carbon to here, but I can tell you now I can go and pick up soil that was dry and you couldn't even hold it in your hand, and I can pick it up and it's been like cottage cheese. You know, I can, and it just feels great and it looks great, looks healthy, you know, and it's not everywhere, but I've seen that transformation, and so there's got to be a massive change. But the biggest change for me in the whole thing is just life. You know, birds, bees, and just, it's just vibrant.
Okay, Hamish and Simon. Thanks. Hamish and Simon, you both, I think, loosely alluded to when soil is not kind of in the right shape, you get weed issues, but we're sort of amongst friends here, so I just want to challenge that a little bit. I was taught a long time ago that a weed is just a plant in the wrong place. So can you tell me, how does the soil distinguish between what's a weed and what's not? For example, if I'm growing dandelions for leaf production versus dandelions, say, as a weed in a lucerne stand or something. So, yeah, it sounds a little bit too good to be true, but maybe it is.
Good question. Who wants to go first?
It's a matter of creating the soil conditions that favour a particular type of plant. And so, if you've got a lot of wireweed growing there, the soil's likely to be anaerobic, bacterially dominated. So if you want to change it so that the conditions are less favourable for that weed to thrive, then that's how you... It's not about getting rid of weeds, but it's a matter about who thrives and who doesn't. And so it's getting a soil biome, I suppose, the ratio of organisms in the soil that are going to favour the particular plants you want to thrive. I guess where you run into trouble with that in cropping is that if you're trying to grow wheat and you've got grass weeds,
yeah.
And that's terribly difficult, but that's where cover crops, I think that's where cover crops are going to come into play, and you manipulate other things to try and get rid of them.
I think on that too, I think the salt-based fertilisers, the salt-based fertilisers are probably suppressing calcium availability as well, and I think most weeds don't like calcium.
Actually, that's one thing Nigel's jogged my memory. Since I've stopped putting on PK&S fertiliser, weed problems have started to drop away. So I don't know whether that's about the amount of soluble nutrient that's available at any one time, but that's just an observation. I don't have an explanation for it.
Where you've got bare soil, plants want to restore. So that's why one of the principles of having no bare soil, you don't get the chance for weeds to grow. So, you know, it's interesting, I started off planting a red and white clover crop because that's high productivity, but what I found is when we get back to that whole sustainability issue is that poa starts to come back into it. Chickweed, all these they love high nitrates. So in the clover crop, I'm pumping in nitrogen into the soil, but it's not being utilised by anything. Can you understand what I mean? Yep. So I have to spray. So now I've just gone away from that and I just plant diverse perennial pastures and I just don't have a weed problem. I'm even getting away from California thistle problems with the longer pastures. Must be the deeper roots, there's no, the cover, I'm covering the soil, the light doesn't get in and get because California thistles are there all the time. You spray them and spray them and spray them, they will pop back up and haunt you.
California thistles love bacterial dominated soil and compaction.
Mike?
Yeah, we've talked a lot today about various things, but mainly the big five: the use or not of artificial fertilisers, chemicals, harming the soil, living roots, introducing livestock, diverse crop rotation, those sorts of things. For the benefit of those in the room who are looking at getting into this sort of system, but are afraid of losing the shirt on their back in the process, because it's so different to what they're doing and it's so different to what they're being advised to do by the various industry groups. I would like to know from the farmers and even from the others on the panel, what is the part that, if we were to start somewhere, where would we start to get the biggest bang from our buck?
Good question, Mike. We'll start down this end. If it was me, I would just be looking at all the doing some research on different cover crops that are cheap and creating a mix, taking a couple of hectares and giving it a go on a couple of hectares and seeing what happens in there. Maybe if it's your first time in there and you've got your stuff, maybe before you put that seed in the ground, maybe spray it with a litre of glyphosate with some maybe 8 litres of fish, and give it, so start what's there and drill the other stuff in and see how it goes. And I think you'll find that the actual cost of the seed is really, really affordable if you pick the right seeds.
My experience as a good starting point is looking at what are you spending money on unnecessarily. So a lot of the time, the people I deal with are spending so much more than they need to on not just synthetic fertilisers but other inputs that are just having them be susceptible. And if we're smart about these things, like chelating our elements so that they're more stable in the soil and more, I guess, better utilised, like I'm speaking to nitrogen especially at the moment, is we first take that money that we're spending unnecessarily and making our soils more susceptible to so many pests and diseases and just chewing away at our bottom line, is I get people just straight away addressing those unneeded expenses and just adding likes of a carbon source to our fertiliser just to have it be more stable and more usable in the soil. And then we've got this extra money here to play with. I look at the system, what's limiting in the system, getting people outside of this linear monofactor thinking and throwing ambulances at the bottom of the cliff, and really sort of enabling guys to step back and look at their system and being able to see for themselves what's limiting them in their system, and then creating systems from there, using money made available to be able to spend on likes of the diversity of pastures, from save money from cutting back on this unnecessary fertiliser use and chemical use.
Okay, so it depends which state of your journey you're in, but what I'm saying is that you have two resources that are limiting, money and your time. And so depending on how far you're on to thinking about it, if you're at the very start, I would say the best investment of your money, this is working? Yeah? It's really about learning, I think, because I've done the courses with Nicole. I've done 2 courses. I've done training I've attended some of Christine's workshop. I've read all of these books. And I'm hearing that all the guys here, they've done so much learning themselves. And I think, a few $100 invested in doing that learning is just going to get anyone on the foot for really being able to critically appraise what am I trying to do there. Just even changing the mindset and the question that we're asking. Like for me, because I come from science and from the reductionist way of looking at things, I've had to really get out of my way to try and grasp this. And I think for me that's the best investment. If you've already done that, then you should ask these guys, because I'm useless with a spade, so I'll pass the microphone.
I'd agree with Gwen entirely, actually. I think if you want to start biological, regenerative, conservation agriculture, whatever you like to call it, you need to understand the mechanisms by which it works, and that is about learning about the soil microbiome. How does it work? Who are the various players? What do they mean? Otherwise, if you don't have that base knowledge, and doing a course with Nicole or something like that is a really good place to start. But reading lots of stuff. Otherwise, when the wheels start, things always go wrong in farming. And if you're in this type of farming and things start to go wrong and you don't understand, you don't have a basic understanding, you're going to have no idea how to proceed in terms of getting things back on track again. So you have to build in some new skills, you have to build in some new knowledge, and I take it, Mike, you mean someone who's already decided that they really want to do something different than what they're already doing. So they're likely to be people who can learn and who can upskill themselves. I think those are the most important things. I mean, those of us who are farming up here, we've all learned by trial and error, and that's a really expensive education. And for people starting now, they don't have to do that. And also, you know, talk to us. Bouncing ideas off people is a really good way to learn.
I just, yeah, as I alluded to earlier, I reckon calcium-magnesium ratio for the soil. If you've got a tight soil, you're not going to have any microbes. If you've got a sandy soil, you're not going to have microbes. You've got to make the home for the microbes habitable before you can build them. That's where I'd start. And I put insecticide, getting rid of chemical insecticides, a very, very close second, if not on the same level as that. So that's mine.
On a very practical note, I'd just start drip drilling. If you've got tight, compact soils, put an aerator through it. It's just the quickest way to get started. Obviously, I've just shown you that going to RPR instead of superphosphate works fine. I haven't put on any fert for 3 years, and we're just growing more grass. And I'm like, that's interesting. So you just sometimes somebody's got to do it and try it. If you don't change your management, it'll probably dive on you. So get into some rotations with your stock. And what's the other one? And then, this is the other one. We will get told to plant 20 to 25 kilos of ryegrass with 3 kilos of clover. That's not science. Do you know how much you can go to and still be productive ryegrass pasture? Anyone know how many kilos?
5.
Yeah, 5 to 8. And after a year, there was no difference. So if we want to talk science, like, I get sick of this, where's your science? Well, here's some science, but that's not what the industry is selling us. Apart from that, just add a whole lot of other species into your pasture. That's not hard. And what I'm finding is when you start no-tilling and not wintering heavy stock so you completely pulverise your soil, if you keep your soil nice with, you can just drip drill straight into it afterwards, one spray drip drill, and it goes really well. And I find if you have a few weeds like fat hen or shepherd's purse, which I have got before because I didn't get the management quite right, I just mulch it and then done. Like, I've saved about $300 a hectare just on my new grassing program. I'm just slashing up costs, growing more grass. I'm like, where's the downside? But anyway, there are a few. It's not all that easy.
I like putting the points before the Quorum group. Hamish of not sending the money to town unnecessarily.
Hey Duncan, can I say something else on that? So this isn't going to be just slightly a little bit a different kind of space, but it's just on a general, just not to you personally, but to everyone that would ask that question. So you're asking yourself, what do I need to do to change and do this kind of stuff, right? So there are practical things you can do, and there's learning that you can have. But at the end of the day, that's what would work for you. So I don't have to farm, but I have to do my job in a very different way to be where I'm here. And every day I have to make the choice to do that. And so what I'm asking myself is, what works for me? So if you're the kind of person who would really enjoy to muck around in one part of your farm and do little trial and experiment, then by all means you do that, and you surround yourself with people like that will bounce ideas. If you're the kind of person that enjoys going and talking to other people before trying something else, or learning books or whatever, what I'm saying is that what works for you and how you learn, I think will be something that everybody could look and instead of taking advice for someone else, because this whole space as well is about getting happier and doing something that is more joyful. Because if we're starting to be very serious and we're just going to do the same thing that we've done that got us to be here, right? And I think that's that I want to change that anyway.
That's good answer.
Yeah.
We need a song.
Impromptu?
This is the guy from Lindburn, sorry, I forget your name. You mentioned 3 different establishment preparation techniques, so grazing hard, glyphosate and crimping, cover crop. But you didn't say what worked, when you'd use them, why you'd choose one or the other, what time of year. If you could comment on that, that'd be really helpful.
The answer to that is they all work. Okay, but it's fit for purpose and what you're trying to achieve. If you want to keep things alive there, it's like, so you've got stuff that's growing and you just want to add to it, why would you spray that? So in my environment, like right now, if I drill it in certain things aren't actively growing. If I get to February and it's very dry, then things aren't actively growing either. So I've got windows to put stuff in, and you know, with the spraying thing, I'm even, you know, looking at spraying seed out. Okay, so when it comes to establishment, you've got you can either really hit it hard chewing wise, you can let it get away and then eat, you know, 30-35% of it and smash the other with livestock. Like cattle are very good at doing that, and then drill into it with a no-till drill, or you can do what I said before, just spray it with a little bit of Roundup, stunt what's there. You might kill a few things, buffer it though with some fish and some humate, and then drill into that as well. Yeah, so they all work really. You know, one of the things when I started this whole thing was, you know, I was trying to come up with mixes and I had failures. But then I saw different things that worked as well. And in my environment, I've got, you know, ground that's like the floor here. So if something came up and grew, I'm making progress. Okay? And so what I saw is I had things come up like that, and then I went again, and then it got better. Because what I've got is I've got an environment that's asleep. So the biology is not active. So then I put something in, and then it's just starting that process of photosynthesizing, and then it's like going for a run. You go for that first run, it's hard. The second run, you're a bit better. The third run, it's more. So it's just getting that engine cranking, you know. That's the theory I take to it. So if you go and something doesn't work, you don't get, you go again.
Yeah.
And you know, you go again and you just change it up a little. How can I make it better? You know, like one of the things, you can do things for less than $100 a hectare, diverse stuff with seed. Okay, we're not talking huge. You know, if you just pick a couple of hectares, you can do it quite easily. You know.
Good point. You can't throw 100 kilos of urea at something.
Yeah, you're not using no fertiliser, just stick it in the ground and see what happens.
Simon, I guess I'll direct this question at you, but for anyone really, you know, we get those hills, you know, soil test charts, and they sort of have an optimum for everything. And one of those I've been quite focused on in my farming enterprise is the pH, and that, you know, on that chart it's 5.8 to 6, and there's a lot of talk here about the fungi and the bacteria and the optimal ratio, and there's a very interesting study from the UK, a place called Hoosefield, where they have a pH gradient from 4 through to 8, and they found that at 6.5 the fungi and the bacteria are equal in terms of imbalance. And I was just wondering, views on what you thought the optimal pH for our soil should be, and particularly given you've sort of been playing around with this for quite a while, and if you've noticed any difference, or maybe something you've not looked at all.
Yeah, soil tests are good for lighting a fire. But I guess the first comment about calcium is always the one that agri-chemicals that we use, selective agri-chemicals we use in crops, show two things. They crash calcium and phosphate in the plant, even in non-target species. I agree with Nigel on the calcium-magnesium ratios, and especially in cropping land where it dictates whether you can or can't work with the soil. pH is relatively irrelevant, I think, provided it's not exceptionally low. The rhizosheath on the plant creates its own pH, and then will collect from the soil what it needs around it. So the whole current paradigm is about liming for pH, but to me it's about getting that balance in the soil. But calcium is really important.
I was going to say that you can you can adjust pH faster with magnesium than you can with calcium.
Potassium.
Yeah. So calcium needs to be used as a mineral, not as a pH buffer.
Yeah.
That's
And just on that too, on the rhizo sheath, is that an active rhizo sheath around the root system can buffer pH up to 2 units.
And if I had to pick a number, 6.4.
I just know with Colin Sizer's data over 10 years, his pH went from 5.2 to 6 without any lime. I thought, okay, how'd you do that? And that was with, these same principles done. And the other thing too, I think liming, one of the big reasons for liming, I think, is aluminium. And where my family farm was, volcanic ash soils, high aluminium, huge amount of phosphate, pH was still good, no productivity. Banged on some fine lime, dropped the aluminium out, and it just turned around like it was nitrogen. So I think the aluminium is probably one thing that holds back a lot of farming, especially through the high country and stuff. So that's.
So the biggest sort of reduction in aluminium also outside of that calcium thing is biology. And also on the note of the rhizo sheath is that will also buffer aluminium toxicity so that we don't have it in our plant.
We're going to have to wrap up soon, so anyone here for back? Ryan. We'll grab you on.
I just want to read a statement from Phyllis Titchener regarding protein conference in Auckland that she attended this week. She says, the head of Heinz Wadi Cropping in Canterbury came up to nicely pump me for information about how to shift cropping over to soil carbon pathways, and did they really need to get rid of glyphosate? So I ask all of you, do we really need to get rid of glyphosate?
I'm not a chemical expert, but I know I've got some chemical shed and there's some chemicals in there I would definitely want to get rid of for glyphosate. It's for what I've done, it can help, but I don't use it all the time. It's like I'm constantly trying to find a way where you can get away without doing it, and that's through the grazing and through the actual mulch and using animals to create natural mulch. So yeah, that's what that's.
So I had a past life of being a full-time chemical applicator and agronomist, and so I've spent a lot of time working with chemicals, especially glyphosate. I've learned a lot about glyphosate in the last sort of half a decade, and part of me wishes I didn't know what I know now about it. However, it is a tool, and it's about being smart with it. Like at Simon's, we chelate with fulvic acid to have it be used up completely by the plant, so not to be left soluble in the soil. It is a water-soluble product, so once it's in contact with water, she's generally gone burger if it's not chelated. But like anything, everything has a plus and a minus, and it's just about where it sits in your system. And I'm sort of, I know its effects, and I have been known to still use it, and that's sort of where I sit on it.
Okay, so right. From a consumer standpoint, and from where I think the global market is going, it would be very smart to go towards more organically grown food, just because I think in the Western world, that's what the consumers want. Because I think by and large, the consumers don't really care that much about soil carbon. They care about what perceived poison they put in their body. Now, having said that, we had a discussion some time ago about tillage versus glyphosate. which was quite animated. And then after having spent some time with especially Jonathan Lundgren and having seen a few tillage systems in the state, I've become a little bit more mild with my opinions. I think if I had to pick a topic, a main topic of research that I could get funding for, I would really love to help any of you go and meet the organic versus the no-till and doing everything without the chemicals. But at the moment, I think each of the systems have got, negative part of it and positive part of it, and it's what works for you in that context, what is your market. And I have to say, as a scientist, I've been exposed to loads and loads of nasty chemicals too, just to say that as well.
Yeah, I don't particularly like the stuff, but we need it at this stage. Otherwise we'd have to cultivate, and that's far more destructive. But there's glyphosate and there's glyphosate. I use a formulation of 360 glyphosate that's manufactured in a licensed factory, so it's either been manufactured under license from Monsanto, so we know that the process is clean. You can buy loads of cheap crap glyphosate that's been of unknown origin, unknown contaminants. Secondly, try to get a product that's only glyphosate and no adjuvants, because half the time it's the adjuvants that are added to the glyphosate that are far more toxic than the actual glyphosate itself. And thirdly, use it with care and chelate it when you use it, as Jono said, as we're doing. And for God's sakes, don't use it prior to harvest, because that's the surest way to get it into the food chain. The other thing is, the point I'd like to make is, if you live in the North Island, you don't really eat New Zealand wheat. If you buy bread, it's not grown in New Zealand. And that wheat that comes in from overseas is of unknown origin and has probably, in many cases, been pre-harvest desiccated with glyphosate. So we, as farmers, we get it in the neck for glyphosate contamination, but the bloody food's imported anyway. So I'm not quite sure how to deal with that one. But yeah, I mean, I'd love not to have to use it, but at the moment it's the lesser of two evils, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree totally with Simon. I use Roundup Renew, which is their original G360, where I can. It's becoming harder to get now. Chelating it with fulvic acid product. I get it through farmlands from root shoots and fruits. I use half a litre of that with a litre and a half of G360, and that's my Roundup program. It's all selective, non-selective herbicide pre-plant. Yeah, keep it out of the food chain, get away from pre-harvest desiccation. The school of public opinion will have glyphosate gone before science. So if we can keep it out of the food chain, perhaps we can keep it for a bit longer.
Right, one more question because I think we better wrap up. Looks like everyone wants to leave, so go. Roger.
We've been from here, guys. And the reason I say that is that I'm involved in the pearl business, and in the pearl business we've got a thing called Pearl Guide, which is like Quorum Sense. It's an education business, and then a lot of people that are involved in the commercial pearl business have their own websites. Now I can see this evolving to something more. We started to buy seed. Jono sort of does a little bit of advertising on Quorum Sense, but it's generally frowned upon. I think it's time to think about what's that commercial enterprise that sits alongside, not under or over Quorum Sense, and just wondered some comments up there.
I'm glad I asked, Roger.
From a practical sense, I'd actually like to see a lot of the ideas that we've got floating in cyberspace, I suppose, as written as a toolbox, so that if someone's got a problem, they can click on a link, bang, there's an answer. Whether it's subscriber based, I don't know. next thing could be political party.
Okay, well, about 11 months and 23 days ago, this thing started, so it's kind of happened very quickly, and it's sort of taken us by surprise a bit as to how widely it's spread and how interesting it's got. Yeah, the website's a good thing, good idea. We have a blueprint for a website, we just don't have any funding for it.
Is that hand again?
So yeah, just on the website and the entity, we will be creating Quorum Sense as its own entity. We will be creating a tier website platform whereby we can trade and produce documentation on stuff that we've discovered within the group. We're going to have it validated by people like Nicole Masters and Gwen Grelet and Professor Charles Murfield and a few others that have put their hand up to validate our ideas and madness. I guess beyond the $1 million peer review paper model, and get it done a whole lot quicker and have it be readable by people that don't need a PhD to read it. And we'll also create, it's going to be like a Quorum Sense hub with the core group as the hub, and then out from that we're going to have some entities like, well not entities but sub-branches of Quorum Sense. So it'll be Quorum Impact, which would be an area where people can come on board. We don't want to take any government money, so if people want to, and the private sector want to come and give us money to well, we don't want to be, we'll take public money if there's no conditions, but we want to be able to produce some documentation. We want to be able to have products and services that we know to be valid and useful be advertised in that space. We're going to have Quorum Foods, which is going to be a direct-to-consumer marketing platform for growers to advertise and sell at whatever prices they decide to create, but having a story behind it so people can buy food that has a bit of a story. Like, within our group we've already got Nigel's spray-free oats and wheat. We've got Simon, well, these two are both making bread. They've been talking to the people like that catered today. They've tried making some bread from their spray-free and home-milled flour. Simon's looking at creating a small quantity mill facility so you can produce some flour direct to market. We do have some food producers within the group that will then be able to advertise and promote their own, products to consumers, and consumers can read through a story, but also the idea is that we'd have like a checklist of tick boxes of criteria that they meet or don't, and hopefully really shorten up that food chain. And then there'll be an area for information so people can come on board and, PDF format or whatever. The technological thing's a bit beyond there, and really that's been what our halt is we're all just farmers really, and we don't really know what we're doing.
That's like the PowerPoint presentation
today. It wasn't just saying, we'd just be. So there's some cool ideas, and it's all ground up stuff, and we just need a bit of support. We're here to support everybody, but we need some support as well.
I think for me, a big thing would actually be just helping other farmers get in. I've been skinning my knees on this job for about 12 years, maybe a fraction longer. Yeah, if you want to have a go, talk to people. Yeah.
Very good point, thanks guys. I suppose I better wrap it up, otherwise we'll be here all day. Just want to take a moment before I thank these guys, just to thank all of you guys for getting behind this wee brain idea that we had, and behind the whole quorum thing. And for me personally, it's pretty bloody exciting to have been a part and know all these guys and bounce ideas off them. It's certainly reinvigorated my farming systems. So thank you all for coming along and all the great distances that you've travelled and sacrificed to get here. It's bloody awesome. And I'd also better thank Sam, because he's been a big part, big cog in the wheel on this, and made it all happen, and then Sylvia for helping Sam and doing the filming today. And
there's a fair few people behind the scenes doing dishes and things I've seen. So.
Yes. So, all the ladies in the kitchen. And then lastly to our panel, to our panel, especially Peter, Hamish have come so far, Nigel from long way, haven't we?
It took me 4 minutes to get here today.
Gwen and Jono and of course Simon, huge inspiration to us all, so thanks very much for your input and give them a round of applause.